Yes. 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 Hello, Jeff Merritt. Hello, Lindsay Tiger.
Hey, Jim.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good. Let's see if I can get this video to start.
You know what they say, without video, it's just radio.
Yeah. It's not letting me start it here. It says the host has stopped it.
Oh, it seems like who's that host? That seems. But the idea was to allow you guys to start your own video so that you don't pop up with video on, but we can certainly. Should be able to start it now.
Okay. There we go.
That was weird.
It just cut out too. Yeah, it won't let me. There we go. I'm not gonna touch anything.
Hello, hello. Can you guys hear me?
Charlie, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Charlie, let me grab some quick biographical stuff. You are a blank year graduate,
1991.
a young fella.
Yeah.
What was your degree in?
Mass communications, concentration in broadcasting. I sent you a bio.
When did you send it?
In fact, I thought you responded to it. Maybe not. I sent it last evening.
Lindsay, welcome.
Hi,
How are you?
doing well. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. I have the great misfortune of my wife and I are dividing, do we buy a new furnace? Which when it was 70 degrees, it's like that rare time you can think, should we buy a new furnace? It's 84 now. It's no longer a decision. It's
Yeah.
but we need to just go ahead and do something. Yeah. So it's a little, but that's okay. Jeff and Jeff, welcome.
Nice to be here.
Well, looks like we will have a nice crowd of 5 then. I'm waiting. Mr. Crum, can you turn your camera on or is it not allowing you?
Let's see here how this fancy high-tech stuff works.
I actually watched 2 hours of webinars on how to do a webinar
Oh, really?
because there's all kinds of things you can do with this. There's a Q&A section. Shin, one of our instructors, is going to be kind of monitoring the students' Q&As.
Yeah.
And she, I think at some point we will throw to her as a co-host.
All right.
See, I can joke with Jeff, did you pay your cable bill since he and I work together at Spectrum, which is cable.
I may have let that lag.
Yeah.
Hang on, I'll bring it up on my iPad. I'll be back in a second. I
Okay.
have an old Mac. So. Ooh, Charlie! Ouch.
So, Charlie, I'm curious, as a baseball fan, does your station travel for the Rays or do you?
You know, it's such a weird year.
Yeah.
And they went to the series. Well, I'm actually up in Boone. We came up for homecoming. So I actually don't know. I don't think so. We didn't go to Canada for the Tampa Bay Lightning because they were in the bubble and they wouldn't let. The only way media could go was to go at the beginning of the bubble and stay the whole time. So actually, as I think that out, no, Texas has become a bubble, so there's no in and out.
Yeah, Charlie, we had to, I work with the Hurricanes and
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
we had everybody in Raleigh while the team was up in Toronto. Even our broadcast guys were upstairs in the arena the whole time. They would not let you anywhere
Our guys
near
too. Yeah,
Scotiabank
our guys
Center.
too. And
Yeah.
in fact, I know the Lightning crew pretty well, and one PR guy went to the bubble, and he was there the entire time. Feeding
Wow.
out releases and stuff, and setting up Zoom interviews. Quite an experience, like no other.
Yeah,
Just
they were.
crazy.
they were all glad to be home. They would have liked to play for the cup, but I think that mentally got to them. They had a nice hotel, the Fairfield there. It
Yeah.
was really, really nice, but you just couldn't go anywhere, and even the rooftop bar was off limits. So
I heard that some of the teams checked out with some quite extravagant tabs, which, as you might imagine.
That room service will get you. Welcome, Casey. How are you?
Hi, sorry for the technical difficulties.
That's okay. I see two Caseys.
Oh no, hold on.
Can I remove the other Casey? So
Yes.
they finally did do that cloning thing at Spectrum. Good.
They did. I'm in Charlotte and in Raleigh at the same time.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, we're going to need you to
hey,
be
there's
upstate
D.
New
Jeff
York.
Crum from WASU Radio.
Hello. No, I know what Jeff Crum looks like.
Uh-oh.
I'm going to remove the other Casey.
Yeah, the one that doesn't have my picture.
The one without
Or
a
my
picture. There's such a thing as building your audience, but let's not be ridiculous. So yeah.
There, you got me now.
I do.
All right.
Hey, Jeff, good to see you.
Hey, Charlie, how are you, man?
I'm good.
How's the Tampa world?
I'm away from it. I'm up on Boone, and we came up for homecoming.
Oh, really? Yeah, we're going to be up there tomorrow. Well, I couldn't get out of my Airbnb, so.
I saw you still coming. Seven Devils, right?
Yeah. Well, that's good. I'm glad you got back up
homecoming
to
this weekend too.
Oh, sweet.
I'll be in
We
Seven Devils.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Whereabouts?
To be honest, I don't know. One of my good college friends, her parents have a house there, so we're
okay.
going up for the
right.
weekend.
That's
Yeah,
the
we
best kind.
we got
Someone
a,
else owns.
We have a condo right
Yeah.
down from town hall, so. I love Seven Devils.
Okay, guys, at about 5:28 or so, I'll throw up a video. We have 5 attendees at this point, but I suspect based on teaching online classes, people believe 5:30 does not believe 5:28. Casey, you'll appreciate that of the Allen Mason rule of on time is 5 minutes early. They don't go with the Allen Mason rule of on time.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Of course not. They're college students.
Yeah.
I was one not too long ago.
I,
Good times.
Jim, where's your office located?
in Beasley,
What floor?
3rd floor,
Nice.
right near the elevator. Yeah,
Are you near Dr. Edie?
no.
Okay.
I got sick last week and I haven't been back. I caught, it wasn't COVID, but it was some form of flu and I didn't enjoy it. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm home with COVID.
Oh, no.
Been home for a couple weeks, but I got the mild version. So it's just a matter of waiting out a positive or negative test. Can't seem to test negative.
So sorry. I know it's a pain to deal with, regardless of the symptoms. I know it's got to be mentally not fun.
Yeah. I don't do well working out of my house.
My godson's wife was just diagnosed with it 2 days ago, so they're both stuck at home. He's a fireman, so he can't go back to the fire department for 2 weeks. He's got to be in quarantine for that long. So
Jeez.
My wife will tell you I'm not a lot of fun to be around when I'm sick.
yeah.
I don't know why that is, but yeah.
Oh, I do.
Something about that 20 years of working together, you kind of learned that about me, huh, Jeff? Okay. No. Anybody have anything? Casey, you went through the intern drill, didn't you? Where I did the scary intern speech?
Oh yeah. Oh, I got it twice.
Good. From me?
And I remember from you, and you told me to peel the phone out of my hand, just like that.
I don't know why you'd ever need to peel the phone out of your hand. Yeah.
I can't imagine what she's talking about.
I
No,
know, right? It's not letting go.
Devil phone, devil phone.
so on purposes of this is being recorded, so in sending it out, this little interlude will kind of serve as an open, so that the 6 of us sitting here isn't really an open. So we'll throw that up in a couple minutes.
Jim, did you go over like a timeline at the beginning that I missed?
The math questions, we talked about that you would do all the math questions. No, no, do you have time constraints or do you?
No, I was just wondering.
No, it's kind of a, it's really just kind of a chat. And about halfway through it, we'll let the students chat and we'll take it from there.
Are any other professors going to be on this?
Nope. Well, actually, there's a lot of them in the, can you see the attendees? Can you guys see the participants?
Me too, it looks like now.
Yeah.
There are 17 attendees and 6 of us, it looks like.
Yeah.
Good, so we could make a run for it if we had to.
Just have to stay ahead of the rest of you all. Go ahead.
Lindsay, where are you? Your bio is fascinating. I dream of living like 6 months like that of your last year, your last 10 years.
I live in Boston.
Okay.
So I'm in the south end of
Okay.
Boston, if you're familiar.
So is fall done there or is it still hanging on?
It's actually like 75 degrees today, so it doesn't think it's still the tail end of summer is what it feels like, but it's very beautiful with the leaves and everything. We have been told it's going to be a very bad winter though, so we will see.
So you got that to look forward to.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jim Newman. I'm a new professor, not professor, I'm an instructor at the Department of Communications at Appalachian State University. I want to welcome you this evening to our discussion entitled "What I Would Tell My College-Age Self." I think it's a really kind of an interesting topic because I think as most of us, you get to be my age, you look back on your college years and you think about things that you stressed out and things that you worried about and things that that really turned out to be not so important. And then there's a lot of things that really were important that maybe you didn't realize. I come to Appalachian State from a almost 40-year career in television news, the last 19 of which was spent with Spectrum News, Time Warner Cable News, News 14 Carolina. I am still a recovering newsaholic. I know I am because I yell at the TV set and nothing seems to happen still. So there you are. I want to introduce our panel. I'm very thrilled to have our distinguished guests with us here today. First off, Lindsay Tiger is a 2016 graduate from the University of the Journalism School. Much like a lot of our students that are tuning in today, she worked at the Appalachian, which, you know, a fine newspaper, a fine website, but it kind of shows folks, if you're working there today, you won't believe how far that has taken Lindsay, mileage-wise, career-wise. It's a truly amazing story. From leaving here, going to New York City, she worked for NBC, AMC, and ClassPass. And that was 13 years ago. 3 years ago, she decided to travel the world. Anybody else want to have done that at some point? Made the leap to freelancing, set out on a 15-month trip around the world, lived in 13 countries, traveled to more than 22 on 6 continents, all while filing 60 to 80 stories a month for various publications. I feel pretty darn good commuting between Concord and Boone, actually, to tell you the truth. So for you, Lindsay. Next up is I'm proud to say is an old friend, Jeff Crum. Jeff Crum and I worked together for about 18 years. Jeff is a 1980 PR communications graduate. He's been the chief meteorologist at Spectrum News, all those other names, for most of that time. Jeff is kind of a humble guy. Jeff won't brag. Allow me to brag for a minute. Jeff, I was the news director at Spectrum News for 19 years. And in that time, there were at least 4 times that there were tornadoes on the ground, people's lives in jeopardy, and the only person in the Charlotte market who was on TV. I don't know if we teach dedication and doing it the right way, but somewhere along the way, Jeff Crum learned the right way. Jeff Merritt graduated from Appalachian State in 1989 with a BS in political communications, excuse me. Got his master's in liberal studies from NC State. Since 2011, he's been the executive director of the Centennial Authority, which oversees the PNC Arena in Raleigh. He was formerly the press secretary, press assistant, speechwriter for Governor Martin, and he's also a past president of the ASU Alumni Association. Charlie Belcher is a 1991 graduate with a degree in mass communications. He's a 3-time Emmy Award-winning journalist who has been at Fox 13, the Fox station in Tampa, near where he grew up, since 1998. His stories air mornings on Good Day Tampa in a segment called Charlie's World. Charlie is no doubt presently consumed. He's a big sports fan, as I am. No doubt presently consumed with the Tampa Bay Rays march to the World Series. I won't go into my love of the Atlanta Braves and what they do to me every October, but that's another subject. So, Casey Howard is one of our newer graduates, graduated in 2017, also a Spectrum employee. She graduated with a major in journalism and a minor in general business. While at App, she did 3 internships. One was at Spectrum, where she got to hear the Jim Newman Scary Intern speech. I believe it's copyrighted, and I'm not sure, but it's probably in the Library of Congress. As far as what I do in that speech is I tell all the interns the good, the bad, and the ugly of working in TV and TV news. And Casey was one of the ones who didn't flinch, didn't go running home to her mom, stayed with it, kept pushing, did a few more internships, got a job as an associate producer with Spectrum when she got out of college, and later been promoted to a producer. And she's been working in the Raleigh newsroom, but now that I am no longer in the Charlotte newsroom, she feels it's safe to come back to the Charlotte newsroom. So I'm sure that's not have anything to do with Casey. Sure. So, as the new person amongst this panel, this group, I've always been struck by the loyalty and love that the alumni feel for the school. And if we could start off with Charlie, it's what, when you look back on your time here, what was your favorite memory?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. I think just the atmosphere and learning independence. And that you don't appreciate that until you're kind of looking back on all of that. But I think if I look back, I think it was that you're growing up period. You grow up to go off to college, but those college years, you really do learn how to be a functioning human in society. And to do it in the atmosphere of Appalachian State, from the topography to the weather, to the feeling that at least was around in the late 80s, early 90s on campus of small town, but we're all kind of in this together. We're up on this mountain to learn something kind of special. That just feeling, that intangible, that really is my favorite thing that I think about when I think about Appalachian State. It's that up on a mountain, learning how to become a functioning human in society. And now I'd be able to say, you know what, I did okay. I'm still alive. I'm paying my bills.
I should jump in. I am a very rude human being. I did not introduce Shinshin Liu, who is here to help at a later point in our discussion this afternoon. We're going to take questions from the audience. And my coworkers know I have the attention span of a rock. So they said, we probably should put someone with Jim so that otherwise he's going to ignore all those student questions. So Shinshin will be helping me with that. Sorry, Shinshin, I didn't mean to be so rude, but moving along. Lindsay, the same question. What's your favorite memory of here?
So first, I have to tell you, I graduated in 2009, not 2016. That would have been a lot of ground to cover. Might have been my typo.
Or it's math, and I wasn't really good at math. Yeah,
I'm not very good at that either. When I went to Appalachian State, one of the choices when I was deciding which school to go to, I felt so comfortable from the moment I stepped on the campus. I loved the mountain. Everyone that I encountered was so friendly, was so kind. I was always interested in journalism from a young age, so I was able to do a tour of even the Appalachian's newspaper office before I became a student when I was a junior in high school. So when I made the decision to go to Appalachian, I didn't feel that same sense of, I think, anxiety that a lot of new college kids might feel. I mean, you're excited, but you're also nervous going off. And I was just so amazed that I got to go to this college campus. And I think from week 3, I was already working as an intern at the student newspaper. So I really felt like I got right into my element. And another memory was just all of those really late nights going to press with the Appalachian. I don't know what it is now, but it used to be 2 times a week publication. And we would just stay there till 2 a.m., 3 a.m. trying to get it done, and then still somehow make it to a 9 o'clock class, and I wasn't exhausted. I mean, now if I'm up that late, I can't even string together 2 sentences the next day, so I have no idea how I did it then. But it just was such a wonderful feeling of a family, and I think that's what everyone talks about when they talk about the Appalachian and just going to Appalachian State. It does feel like you're in a family atmosphere. And to your point, Charlie, it has a lot to do, I think, with the small town feel. I'm from Asheville, which isn't too far away, but Boone is also, a lot smaller than Asheville.
Yeah, believe me, Lindsay, you get to be my age. The idea of an all-nighter is terrifying. I mean, you don't even want to think about it. But Jeff Merritt, how about you?
I'd have to say that you know, one of that family environment existed in the mid 80s too. And one of the first things I did as a freshman was march myself from Cone Dormitory up to Way Hall where WASU was, because all I wanted to do was get on the radio. That just was my dream. I'd done a little like high school radio, a little AM radio station in Asheboro, but WSU seemed like the big time. And so you go up there, and they tried to figure out how to put you on the air, not get out of here, freshman. And so within a couple of weeks, I'm sitting in with some guys that ended up being some really made a career out of radio. And you know, within a couple of weeks, I'm on the air playing music, not very good, but just doing it. And you said something about Lindsay earlier in the Appalachian. And if Dan Valley's on here, he's heard this ad nauseum, but my first job was with Governor Jim Martin in his second term, and I beat a guy for that job who was a Moorhead scholar and if you know anything about the Moorhead Scholarship, you know that in 1988, 89, Appalachian graduates didn't stand a chance against a Moorhead scholar. But I beat him, and I asked later, my boss, how did I do that? And he said, well, we looked at your resume and we looked at his. And he had a 4.0 and he studied at Oxford and he did some great things, but he didn't do one thing out of the classroom. And you wrote for the Appalachian and you worked for WASU radio and you did some other things on campus. We figured you could think on your feet and you weren't afraid to talk to people. And the job with the governor was at that time a press aide. I traveled with him to make sure he was comfortable and knew what he was supposed to be doing with the press. But I never equated spinning records at a third floor of Way Hall with getting a job with the governor of North Carolina, and it launched my career. And so everybody on the call, the little things you think you're doing now as a freshman, a sophomore, a junior, a senior, are really big things or can be big things. You don't even know it yet. But no, Appalachian to me was not just a launching pad, not just a way to get a sheepskin on my wall, but real world experiences with really good people that really cared about whether I graduated or not. I mean, there wasn't this Social Security, number thing that some other schools that friends of mine went to had. And so my love for the school exists because I exist because of that.
Casey, it's a newer experience for you, only out a few years. It's got to feel fairly fresh in your mind, but yet pretty distant based on the fact that you're a working professional producing 5 o'clock newscasts.
Yeah, so I think the thing that I probably miss most about Appalachian State, but I carry with me today, is the sense of community. Knowing that people I got the job that I have today because of the people in my program. And we all worked off of each other and we all said, oh, we're applying to these internships and we're applying to these internships. And it was no bad blood if one person got the internship or not. And that trickles over today. I know as Spectrum News, we have a lot of Appalachian grads, Jeff Crum being one, and a lot of new grads. We have people that have graduated within the last year who are accepting AP and producer positions. So it's good that, when you're still in the everyday professional field, you still have that Appalachian connection that we can talk about and say, oh, are you friends with this professor on Facebook? Did you see they posted this? And it's cool to have that connection as well.
Last but not least, Mr. Crum, you have kind of a different perspective because you've been out more than 3 years, I'll say.
Yeah, I've been out a while. Graduated up there in '89. So Jeff and I were actually going through about the same time up that way. Don't ever recall crossing paths with you down at the Bavarian Inn, but there on Canada dining section down there. But yeah, it for me as a kid who grew up in a family that was always associated with large universities, App State, I can remember standing on campus up there prior to going there and thinking to myself, dear God, this is too big. Because I had grown up on really big university campuses. And, at the time, I think the student population up there was 10,000 maybe. And I had some people who were really important in my life who were graduates from Appalachian State University, not necessarily in the communications department, but they had a big impact on the person that I am today. And so I suicided going to App State. That was the only school I applied to. And I got in. And, it's a sense of community. It's a small town togetherness. It is being able to walk around here in Charlotte. This is where, to this day, if I'm wearing an App State hat or shirt and people come over and talk with you. I can be out at the coast, and I still run into App State grads out the coast, and we spend a few minutes talking about anything and everything, what our experience was, and just really good people. I mean, one of my favorite instructors in the communication department back in the day was a guy by the name of Jack Holgate, who had been the news director at WTKR in Norfolk, Virginia. And he was just a real honest, direct kind of guy, and appreciated working with him. I was in that program. I already had a good 8 years of production experience going on as a cameraman and editor for Jefferson Pilot Teleproductions. And I was working, my dad at the time had been the head football coach back for the University of North Carolina back through the 80s. And I was working on his TV show. I was working on the Dean Smith show, freelancing a lot of football and basketball games. And I got into the coursework, and we were sitting there in one of the editing classes, and Jack said, "Why in the world are you in here? You're already doing everything." I said, "Well, I'm in here because, you know, I need the degree. I want that, and I want to learn a little more." And Holgate put me in charge of teaching the rest of that editing production class for the rest of the semester. So, but it's a relationship like that. When I needed to reach out as I was getting further into the field, I could call him and get some advice from him and other people up there as well. So it's just, you know, there's a certain amount of mountain love we have. We come off that mountain with dedication and connection. And it just, you know, to this day, you know, I can't wait to get back up to Boone every chance I get. You know, it's just an awesome experience.
Before I jump on to the next question, I do want to remind our attendees in the audience that our panelist has agreed to take questions, and feel free to write it on the Q&A section on the bottom of your screen. They will certainly try to answer them in a little bit, and Chin Chin is standing by to do that. But Lindsay, back to you, and this is, I will show my age now. There's a John Lennon song that says, there's a line that says, "For showing me the meaning of success." When you were at App State, how did you define success? How do you define success now?
Oh, goodness. I guess I still am, but I was very much an overly ambitious student. I had, I think, 6 internships by the time that I left App State, one of them being in New York. I interned for Cosmo and for 17 magazine, and actually stayed at the Appalachian State Loft, which is definitely something that you should look into as a student. It's a wonderful resource when New York is once again a place that you would want to go to. It's a great place, and it's very inexpensive. You get to stay in Midtown, and you can apply if you have an internship within New York City. Definitely launched my career to do that. So I think for me, I was on this like very siloed track. I just desperately wanted to work for a magazine. I wanted to work for a media company, and I did end up doing those things. But I think to me, success was moving to New York, and was becoming a writer and becoming an editor, which I'm proud and feel very grateful that I was able to build the career that I wanted. Today, now that I've been in the field for a long time, I really appreciate and I see the success of being able to write about content that I care about. So much of journalism, I think a big misconception, at least in my freelance world, is it's much more about quantity. And so you're producing a lot of content. Sometimes it's copywriting, sometimes it's, you know, branded content, SEO content. And I don't get to do as much of the things that I'm passionate about. And so when I do get the opportunity to write those, I really value them. And those is what I see as success. And I think also as you get older, I value flexibility. I like that I can work from anywhere. I can make my own hours. I think being my own boss is the greatest success that I've ever achieved. So those are things that has definitely shifted over the last 12 years or so.
And smart news managers will tell you that if somebody feels passionate about something, they're going to do a much better job with it, and they will put their heart and soul into it. So let's skip over down to Charlie. Charlie, success.
It's funny, when I was in college, success was survival. I was always convinced I was not the smartest person in the room, not the most dedicated person in the room, definitely the most insecure person in the room. I thought everybody else had it figured out but me. And I'm wandering through college. I was pre-med my first semester at App State. I was going to be an optometrist. Then I had chemistry class, and I realized I'm not smart enough to do that, or at least I couldn't apply myself to be so at the time. So that was success. Was just surviving. Was keeping the grades up. Was finding wow, I like this, which led me to this, which led me to this, and that's how I measured success. And then of course you get out in the world and immediately you measure success with a job, and that can be a big hurdle. And then you measure success by salary, and being an on-air person, it's salary and popularity equals success. And then you do it long enough to realize all of that is fleeting, and as long as you're able to pay your bills and be happy and live a life you enjoy, it turns out you win and you are successful. So it took me a long time to kind of figure that out and put it in the right perspective of what really success is. And that's some of my advice that'll come later to the current students, that everybody who's in that room with you, they're just as insecure as you are. Just some people are better at hiding it.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Jeff?
Uh,
Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Jeff to the
Yeah,
first
I'd
power.
echo some of the same things. I mean, I just felt like I was the dumbest kid in the school, and what was I doing here? And one of those things that you've got to beat back, even at I'm 55 years old, and you still have to beat it back, is that little voice that says you're not good enough. They're going to figure you out. And I kept waiting for that to happen in Appalachian, and it really did. And I had some professors that challenged me. I had some professors I really didn't like, until you kind of find out maybe they were right about some things when you did get out in the, I hate the term real world, because Appalachian's just as much of a real world as what I'm doing now. If you're always learning, but kind of echo some things that some others said. My idea of success was surviving, getting out, getting paid. I'd say maybe my brethren from the 80s would recall that, money was a big deal then, and you kind of judged, or at least I did, on who got to live in the best town and who got to make the most money. And, come to find out, a lot of those people were miserable. You find that out later. You don't find that out now, or you didn't find that out then, rather. And so to me, just surviving, getting a degree, and then not screwing up. And I beat myself up way too often. And, especially my senior year, when I just was so driven toward getting a job, and wondered, back then, I mean, I'm glad that the students that are on this call today don't remember in Appalachian when it was, people made fun of you sometimes when you got a degree from Appalachian or you went there. I mean, I don't know how many times I had to hear, well, you couldn't get in anywhere else, so you went to Appalachian. Well, the fact is, it was the only school I ever applied to. It was the only school I wanted to go to. So I don't know. I probably wouldn't have got in many other schools, but I got in the one I wanted to. So to me, that was success. And looking back on it 30, 35 years now, success for me is now I do what I love. And, you'll hear this again, I bet, before this hour's over. But if you do what you love, you can get rich doing it. And you don't really worry about Monday mornings or late Friday evenings. I've worked every hour of every day of every year, and that's Christmas and New Year's and Thanksgiving included. So, but I love what I do now so much that doesn't really bother me. And I wish that for all of you on this call.
Okay, so you have a little bit different perspective in that you've only been out a few years. Has that feeling of what you needed to do, what if I do this, I'm successful, if I get to here by this point, I'm successful, has that changed since you've been out?
I think it's evolving. My measure of success in college was being the best, having the best story in class, having the best pitch, having the best internship, having the best of everything. And as I'm evolving, I think I'm learning to not compare the best to others, but compare it to myself. So setting new goals for myself and knowing that I'm still so young in my career and I'm a producer and I have all of these levels to reach. And I want to, I don't know if I want to say I want to compete myself, but I want to set those goals for myself and not compare my goals to another producer's goal or another MMJ's goal or another executive producer's goal, because we're all kind of on our own path here. And that's something that I'm learning as I'm getting more and more out of college, because in college, I mean, you think we're all kind of on the same path. We're all getting this one degree to graduate and get a job, and hopefully. And I was just the same as everyone else. I was so focused on getting a job after college. I remember I was so stressed out on my graduation day because I did not have a job. The second I walked across the stage, got back in the bleachers or in the stands, I got a call from Spectrum News offering an AP position. So luckily it all worked out, but I was very stressed out, and it almost, I don't want to say it ruined my graduation process, but if I could go back and redo it, I would give myself more of a grace period. And I would say that don't be so competitive getting that job, and it has to be the best job, because to be honest, I was about to accept a job with a small newspaper in North Carolina, and I knew that I wanted to do a little bit more than that, so I didn't, fully accept that yet. But I would say that don't compare yourself to others in college. You're on your own track. Be competitive with yourself, because that makes you better at the end of the day.
Casey, on behalf of the former management of Raleigh, I would like to apologize for making you stress that much. It's way too easy to get gray hair in this business without your bosses doing it to you as well.
I'll blame Rick Willis, not you.
Okay, fair enough. As long as you're blaming the person before me, that's fine. But Mr. Crum, I've always said, don't sweat the small stuff, and you better quickly figure out what the small stuff is.
Yeah.
Based on your experience, what words of wisdom for the students would you have on that?
About not, I think the best thing is learn from mistakes. We all make mistakes at some point. Heck, I'm still making them. The thing is to learn from them and not repeat them. In this business, there are hot microphones, there are cameras, there are people out in public that, can sometimes really challenge you in ways that if you were not someone who was an on-air personality, you might take umbrage with and go at them. But you have to kind of step back, take a breath, and understand that there's another way to work a situation. And I think we learn a lot about that from our experiences up there at App State. But yeah, you have to be adaptable. Nothing's ever concrete. You just have to keep going at it. You're going to find a way around it, and the best thing I can tell you is to just understand you make mistakes, you learn from it, you become better up because of it. And sometimes in that mistake making process, frankly, you learn a new way to do something. And it's something, a skill set that maybe a peer of yours has yet to learn because they haven't made that mistake. And you just add to it, you just have to be humble about it, swallow your pride, admit it, own it, and move on. And that really is about the best advice I can give anyone with this stuff.
Jeff, to the second power, same question. We all say don't sweat the small stuff. How do you determine what the small stuff is?
Well, that's still a work in progress, to be honest with you. Kind of what Casey said, I practically ruined my senior year, just worried and stressing. And, that was supposed to have been the best year of your life, right? The last year of college. And I let it not be, but having said that, as a professional, you do have to watch the details. And I wish I had been told this earlier in my career, but you walk into a room and don't consider yourself the smartest person in the room, because you can learn from everybody in it. And so one of the things that I learned pretty quick, that I wasn't a very good writer. And even though I'd come from communications, political science background, I was terrible. And my first boss finally sat me down and said, "You're a bad writer, and this is what you need to do." And that was a detail. I thought I was, I got a degree, right? And I used to write 18-page papers and turn them in, and Carl Tyree wouldn't bleed all over them. And Charlie and Jeff know exactly what I'm talking about. And so hey, I must be good. And coming to find out, I wasn't. And so one of those details was actually listening to somebody that cared. And my first boss said, "Here's how you can be a better writer." And 2 years later, I'm writing speeches for the governor of North Carolina. So that little detail, somebody finally sitting down and telling me I'm not as smart as I thought I was, that opened my eyes. And for the rest of my career and to this day, I want to learn from everybody. I can learn from an 18-year-old just as much as I can learn from a 78-year-old. You just have to be kind of open-minded about it. And sometimes it's a dark night because you think to yourself, I could have swore I was smarter than that. and you're not. So one of the details I'd tell you to pay attention to is what you're weak at, and find a mentor, find somebody that can help you get better. And you might not get better. It may just be a skill you can't master. That's kind of okay too. And I wish somebody told me that when I was 21, because I really thought, well, you just have to know everything or you're no good.
Charlie, what would you add to that?
Excuse me. No, I agree. I think knowing how to ask for help, and you alluded, Jeff alluded to it with, by finding a mentor. I think balance is key, and knowing when and being comfortable asking for help. And that's perfect in the college setting because everybody's there to help you. It's not a trick. They're not trying to trick you into, it's a game show and let's see who wins a degree and who doesn't. They're there to help you get a degree. So ask for help. And the same thing, even when you're out in the professional world, if you're feeling overwhelmed, then you know how to ask for help, take the help, and then learn from it. I think that's the biggest mistake is people, if you get overwhelmed, either with your coursework or in your professional work, your pride or whatever reason, or you're embarrassed, you're not asking for help. Seek out the help and ask for it. I think that's, and if you're not feeling pressure, then you might not be working hard enough, because a little bit of that little pressure feeling is good, and that's kind of what drives us and pushes us and keeps us honest. So I'd challenge you too that it's all about that balance. If your balance is out of way either way, it might be a problem. So push yourself if you're not scared enough, and if you're too scared, ask for help.
Shinshin, I see a question for Lindsay.
Yes. Hi. I'm an associate professor of advertising. So it's always great to see our alumni back. I'm seeing some good questions coming in here. For the first question for Lindsay. So from a PR major, she was wondering if you have any advice for getting your foot in the door at big companies like Cosmo.
So I was in the journalism department as an intern at Cosmo, and I've since freelanced for the magazine. So I don't have a ton of insight into public relations, but my main piece of advice to anyone who wants to work for one of the major, Condé Nast, Hearst, like any of the big publications, you have to move to New York. And I know that's some of the hardest advice to get. I moved to New York with no job, $3,000, 2 suitcases. I slept on a friend's couch, and I applied and interviewed to every single job I could possibly find. It didn't matter if it was Cosmo or Hearst or anyone who would pay me. My first salary was, I think, $29,000 a year, and I lived in Harlem with a communal bathroom situation, but I loved every minute of it, and it taught me so much about being a journalist, but also taught me so much about being on my own. But the big thing about those big places is they don't have the funds to fly you to New York to interview you. As you know, it's a tough industry. It's, everyone's struggling. A lot of print's going out, digital is in. So if you want a job, you have to be able to go in for the interview, and you have to be able to pay for that. So my advice, if you can't move to New York, is to find someone in New York who has an alumni and put their address on your resume. So then at least it gets you through the door. And you can get the interview. And then in the case that you do need to fly to New York for it, stay at the Appalachian Loft. It is a fraction of the cost. Alumni are always welcome to stay there. I think it's like $100, $200 a night, which you won't find anywhere else. When I went in for my interviews for my internship, my mom actually drove me from North Carolina because she's a wonderful human. And I interviewed at all these different places, and we stayed at the Appalachian Loft. So there are a lot of resources thanks to the college for you. But to do that, you really need to be in the cities of which you're going. And don't shoot for Cosmo. Cosmo's in-house public relations is probably highly competitive. Go to an agency so you can get a lot of experience. If you're interested in beauty, if you're interested in lifestyle, go after those types of agencies that specialize in that. And you should definitely check out websites like Ed 2010 and Media Bistro, which will have a lot of job opportunities for that type of stuff. And right now, which I don't know if I said earlier, but it's a great time for internships because they're all digital. So it's a great time to apply for them because you're still getting paid, they're digital, and you're still getting to put these big places on your resume. So definitely apply for them.
Really wise words there, Lindsay. I hadn't even thought about getting somebody else's address, but that makes a lot of sense because if they see your resume and say, well, this person's in North Carolina. I'm not flying somebody up for an entry-level job, but that's very smart.
And I have tons of friends. If you need an address, just email me. I'm sure they don't mind.
And I also hadn't heard about the Appalachian Loft, so I've learned something new tonight. But so, Casey, we all make mistakes. Some cost more than others to fix. What were some of your mistakes, and what would you change?
To be honest, I'm going to say I don't want to change anything. I think we learn from our mistakes and they make us the human being that we are. So in college, I was a journalism major. I wasn't broadcast. If I could go back and do it, I would probably be double major in journalism and broadcast. Just with the career path that I want to go down, I want to be in TV news. The journalism department is very print media focused, which is great. But looking back on it, I learned a lot from the internships that I was in rather than the classes. So if I could go back, I would do the broadcasting department or double major. But I wouldn't say that I necessarily made mistakes along the way, because I learned a little bit about both and I know both sides of things. So I know working with newspapers and partnerships on that side of the business and how that relates to what we do in TV news. I don't know. That's a tough question. I'm going to say overall, I would not change anything, but if you ask me after a glass of wine, that might change.
You didn't drink any wine while you were at Apple, right?
Of course not.
Okay.
Apple juice only.
Good for you. Good for you. Charlie, how about you?
Yeah, I much like Casey, I've not made any mistakes in my life either. No, I'm just kidding. And I know she didn't mean it that way either. But I do agree with her philosophy. I don't look back with any regrets. I don't have this defining moment of, oh, if I'd only done this instead of this. And I think that's the good thing about this panel, is that I think we figured it out by making mistakes the entire time, by the way. Ton of mistakes, embarrassing mistakes, and mistakes that now unfortunately live on YouTube forever. So make your mistakes. In fact, that's what I'd lean into your mistakes. Figure out why they're mistakes. Figure out why you made the mistake, and then don't make a second mistake. But my only regret, I guess, is that I didn't find my path sooner. I wish I had, but then again, the path I took put me in the right place to be on the right path. So it's hard to go back and argue about it. But I was, like I said, I was pre-med at first, and then I was a business major, and I floundered for a little bit until I finally found my home in communications and then theater for me, and then found this world of broadcast television and writing and storytelling. I just loved it, and I've loved it and had a passion for it ever since 30, 40 years later. My only regret is I didn't figure that out maybe sooner. But working at the Appalachian, working at WASU Radio, when I did, put me on the path that I'm proud to have been on. So I can't look at it as too much of a regret.
Dr. Crum, you and I worked together long enough that I know you didn't make any mistakes, but would you like to perhaps talk about something maybe before?
Weather guys never make mistakes.
No,
They're always right.
Practically perfect all the time. We're all Mary Poppins. Yeah. Right. Yeah, I'm kind of on board with what everyone else has said. I've had some, when you're on air a lot, and I'm on air a lot, I can remember very early on in the career with Spectrum News, and Mr. Newman had just hired me and was still getting to know me a bit. And back when we had master control operators in the physical facility we're in today, and it's a Saturday morning, and I'm just kind of not paying attention. I didn't get a hit time in my ear, and I'd seen a recent episode of Frasier, and the song Buttons and Bows was going through my brain. And as Mr. Newman will tell you, I tend to have running commentary. I'm riffing all the time when my mic's hot, trying to keep people awake and everything else. And so I'm singing Buttons and Bows. All right. I've turned to the side. I don't see the red light on the camera come on. The weather hit has started, and I hear in my ear, you're on. You've been on for 30 seconds. And I pivot to the camera. I didn't miss a beat. I pivot to the camera, and I go, and next hour, Pirates of Penzance. And I went right into the weather. All right. So, and the thing I've learned about being an on-air person, and Charlie probably can tell you this too, and even those who work behind the scenes, not the face on TV, is that whatever subtle mistake you make or whatever mistake you make, your audiences and the people that you're serving in the role that you are, they're not stupid, and you don't treat them that way. And you just acknowledge what happened. If you have a fast enough wit about you, you can turn it into a comedy piece, and you move right on. But I think people respect you if there's an on-air mistake, you just own up to it right away. You acknowledge it and you move on. You accept that that's what it is. I haven't had too many major flubs over my lifetime, but there've been a few interesting ones, to say the least. But I was sitting here thinking about that. I mean, I was shooting as a freelance photographer one time. I had to get all, PPE'd up to go into a surgery. I was shooting knee surgery for a hospital. And we got into it, and I got out of it, and I forgot to turn the damn camera on. So that was probably the biggest mistake that I made. And then I had to go back, and luckily there was another surgery a week
They
later,
redid the operation for you?
Huh?
They redid the operation for you?
Yeah, they redid the operation.
That was
So there
good.
was another knee another week, and they were more than gracious to let me come back in, and I was a little more focused. And that's when I was, kind of new to outside of the sports world stuff. And I was starting to do freelance or corporate and some other things. And, a friend of mine outside of Chapel, she had her own, in Chapel Hill, had her own production house, and it was a big contract, and I didn't want to let her down, and I got out of it, and I was, oh my God, I didn't hit the button. So, so I owned up to it. I didn't charge her to go back and reshoot it. I, ate all that cost myself, and, I corrected the mistake on it, but it was cumulative. I guarantee I never forgot to do that ever again after I went through that mistake. So.
Well, without turning this into true confessions of the Appalachian State alumni, Jeff Merritt, do you have anything you'd like to add, or thanks you robbed, or anything that you'd like to confess?
Oh, man. The book I could write about the mistakes I've made.
Yeah.
I'd follow up by saying, and just kind of admit to them. That's a tough thing for younger people to do, and I certainly wouldn't admit to them when I was young. But there's several words that I've learned that are really important in the English language. One is I don't know, and if
Right.
somebody asks you something and you don't know, you can't BS them. Just say you don't know and you want to learn how to do it. But when you've made a mistake, the worst thing you can do is cover it up or try to move try to move the subject. Just admit I've made this mistake. I've had to go to my boss, I don't know how many times in 30-something years, and say, we need to talk. Those are never easy conversations, but I can tell you how to make them a lot harder, and that's not have that conversation. Because you do not want mistakes to catch up to you. You want to attack them first. And again, that goes sometimes counter to what our minds might tell us or what we may see on television or any other source where people have covered up things and maybe gotten away with it. But just saying you don't know and just saying you're sorry can go an awful long way and can keep your job. I mean, I got asked to leave a PR company early in my career. Ended up being the best thing that ever happened to me. At the time, it seemed horrible, but because I didn't own up to a mistake. And you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that twice in your career. But it ended up being the best. I hated that job with a passion. And was terrible at it because I hated it, but it paid really good. And I had a newborn and another one on the way. So, one other thing I'd tell you is if you hate what you're doing, quit, find something else to do. That will be your biggest mistake is trying to stick around someplace just because you're happy where you live or happy with the money you're making, but hate that 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, whatever it is. Man, that'll catch up to you one of these days and I'll smack you.
I can absolutely agree to that. And I will also tell you that as a younger news manager, nothing will take the wind out of your sails when someone ejects a tape on the air and you're all mad and you're running down the hallway and you're, what did, and you walk in, the guy goes, I screwed up, I ejected it. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
Oh, don't do that again. Shinshin, I see we have some more questions.
Yeah, okay, Jim. So there are some good questions coming in here. So the next question is from a journalism major who has 2 minors in studio arts and psychology. So she would love to know if how she can use these 2 minors in her writing career. And she was curious to see if you guys have any tips on that, how to use your hobby, your interest in your career.
Let me jump in on that one. I now make my living off sports and entertainment. And I kind of look back at when I was a kid or when I was in college, and I think about all the things that I love. I love records, and I love going to concerts, and I'd go to tons of sporting events, and I kept every ticket and every program and bought tons of t-shirts and all that stuff. And looking back on it, that was the foundation for what I now get paid to do, which is sports and entertainment, and be interested in that sort of thing. I didn't recognize that when I was in college because I thought, well, I need to make money. And that's, again, that's the moniker of success, is going out and buying the new car and doing all the things I want to do materially. But all the while it was eating at me, man, you should be in sports, you should be in rock and roll. And I learned that pretty, in my late 20s, that was my passion. And I finally started volunteering at different things that had sports to it. And it took me 20 or 25 years to finally land a job, coincidentally, that has sports and entertainment attached to it. But these hobbies, these interests of yours can turn into careers. And I guess my piece of advice to that student, or any student, would be, see if you can find a volunteer organization in Boone or in your hometown, a political campaign, anything where you can scratch that itch a little bit. And for example, if writing is something you want to do, I guarantee you there's a nonprofit in Watauga County that would love to have you volunteer, even at 19 or 20 years old, to help write copy for their webpage. And even if that webpage gets 20 views a month, you still now have a resume that says you wrote for the Watauga County Habitat for Humanity, or whatever it might be. I guarantee you that while it's a little intimidating to walk in or make a phone call to that nonprofit, they'll love you for it. And 9 times out of 10, that person at the other end of the line is going to be not just flattered that you called, but will find something for you to do. Now, 1 time out of 10, somebody will say, "Oh, shut up," and hang up the phone. Well, you didn't want to work for that person anyway. You're not going to learn anything but the worst things from them. So volunteer, make yourself available, because you can put it on a resume, and it's not fake. If you say you wrote for the Habitat for Humanity webpage, that's a big deal. That's a big deal in New York or LA or Raleigh. I'll tell you that because it's experience and it's you're learning.
Lindsay, can you?
Those minors are important too. I'm all, we sometimes think of the minors, at least way back when I was there, is almost a throwaway, but it's not. Those minors are important because they're going to make you more well-rounded. And as a journalist, the more context you can put any story into, it's all about storytelling, relating to an audience. So the better well-rounded you are, it's going to make you a better journalist. I was a theater minor, and I've used what I learned at Appalachian State in the theater department as much in my career as an on-air presenter as anything. Well, maybe not Dr. Tyree. I wouldn't say that about his classes, but any of those writing classes taught me. I mean, these are 2 things that go together. Performance techniques is a theater type background. The practice of oral persuasion, that sort of thing. So good for you for having a double minor. I would encourage the students to really think about your minor. Take it seriously. It's not just a throwaway, let me get a few hours and fulfill a checklist. Definitely minor in whatever your interest is in. And even if it's just interesting you, education's your friend, and it's going to help you in your career.
Lindsay, can you add to that?
Yeah, so as a journalist, you are only as good as your pitch. Your pitch is your currency. It's how you build your career. It's how you get assignments. And I was able to build my travel journalism career by traveling. My situation was unique. I was able to travel for an extended period of time. But there's a difference when you're sitting, if you're I write for Travel and Leisure and for National Geographic, and there's a difference being able to say, I can write about the best food in Thailand, and being able to say, I am in Chiang Mai at this very moment, and this restaurant just opened, and I can go there tomorrow, and I can talk about this chef that used to work at these 5 Michelin star restaurants, and I can get it to you within the next 24 hours. You'll be the first publication to talk about it. It was just such a difference in those 2 pitches. And of course, you can guess that the latter one is usually the one that gets the assignment. And also what you were saying earlier, Jem, about passion. If there is something that you are so passionate about, it is something that you will spend 10 hours writing one story, whereas another story, maybe it's easier, you spend 2 hours writing it, and it's not as good. But when you're so invested in something, it comes out better, and you end up, one assignment always gets another assignment, as long as you, of course, meet your deadlines and you follow instructions and, you know, you run it through a grammar check. The other piece of advice I would say, and this is a big way of how I started with freelancing, I don't want to say write for free, but write for free. Start your own blog. Put it up on the internet. You actually happen to be in such a wonderful age group where everyone is interested in building their own brand, where it's through Instagram, a website, TikTok, Medium, like whatever it is that you choose as your channel. Blogging was still like a new concept whenever I was coming out of college, and it also, like, having a personal website was still something that was still, okay, maybe you need one, maybe you don't. How do you get your print clips to be online? Now a lot of clips are already online, so it's easier. I started writing a dating blog way back in 2010, which my fiance has read a bit since. It's been quite the update since then. But that dating blog actually landed me my first freelance assignments for various publications. And so it got a readership. And then whenever I was applying for these positions, I had a body of work to reference to. And also, when it comes to your minor, I would agree with Charlie. Like, I wish I would have minored in business. I mean, I own my own company now, and I write a ton of career content, travel content. And I wish I had kind of that fundamental. Mine is in sociology, which has a ton to do with journalism. But it is such an important and such a valuable tool, for sure.
Interesting question from an attendee, and I think those of us who are on the back nine holes of our career, if you will, have struggled with. How do you maintain a balance between your personal life and your professional life? Anybody want to take a shot?
It's real tough to do that. I'll tell you that. I have a work ethic that sometimes just, I think, is a bit much. I'm understanding that now that I'm 56 years old versus when I was in my 20s and 30s, building into the career and building into the business and, you know, out there doing a lot of things. It's real tough. You know, I'm working, a slow day for me is about 10 hours a day right now. I've come through a storm season this year that started in late January, and it really wasn't until about 3-4 weeks ago where, you know, I wasn't putting in 11, 12-hour days. And it takes a toll on your interpersonal relationships that you have with your spouse and other family members. You come home, you're tired, you're cranky, you're pissed off, you're angry because you're working all these hours. You got to get up again and you're back at it. In 8 hours, you're back at work doing something again. And it's a real trick trying to find someone who's going to put up with that, but also trying to find a balance for that and find the downtimes that need to be taken. Mr. Newman's as guilty as this as I am. Was always watching everything when he was off on weekends. Always. I mean, there was rarely something that happened on air that wasn't caught in some form or fashion. And I would often think about it, well, geez, doesn't this guy ever just take time off and back away from it? And it leads to burnout. It leads to other issues. And I'm doing everything I can now to get a better understanding of, I need to take time off. Like today, I'm off. I have comp time that I'm chewing through. I still have a lot of vacation time left, and I'm chewing through comp time. It's supposed to be homecoming at App this weekend. I'll be up in Seven Devils tomorrow. We're still going. You know, we'll hang out in Seven Devils in our little COVID safe space, and, you know, we're not going to mingle with a lot of people, but it's just the mental downtime that I get to spend with my partner that I don't get to spend a lot of time of during the week because I'm trying to find ways to unwind from work. You know, I'm not the easiest personality outside of work sometimes. You just have to. I know, really. You just have to find a way to level the wings. You know, it's a learning process.
Charlie,
You know,
you work a morning shift. Is that particularly tough to balance?
I've done it for 12 years now, so I've gotten used to it. And I'm lucky where my wife works an early morning schedule as well. So we're both off 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's worked out well. But I'm by no means a poster child of how to balance work and relationships. I started in Knoxville, Tennessee in radio, and I worked there for 6 years as a crime court reporter and I just moved from Knoxville to Tampa, and my career has been in 2 cities. But usually, if you want to have a broadcast career or even a writing career, you're going to travel. You're going to be bouncing around. You're going to 2-3 years here, 2-3 years there, and it's tough. And it's just tough. There's no easy. Here is the answer. Do it this way, and you'll be fine. I think it's tougher on women than it is on men in many ways, because they have to bounce. You know, when do I have a child, and what's that? How's that going to impact my career? Where men have it a little easier and can go back to work. I don't mean to sound like a caveman, but in my experiences, that it has been just tougher on women. And but it is tough for that balance. And it's how good are you at relationships? Because that's the key. If you're good at relationships and you're good at communicating and you're good at give and take, compromise, you'll be fine, because it takes a whole lot of that and I assume that's the way in any career, but the broadcasting and journalism careers can be tough. You need to find a spouse who's either in the business, and that creates a whole nother set of issues, or out of the business, who's not going to be able to truly appreciate everything you're going through.
I will say too that work-life balance is probably the one thing that they don't talk about in college a lot.
Exactly. Yeah.
But you need to, because I think each of us, since there's a kind of a wide range of ages on here, will tell you we've all sacrificed, sometimes more than others. But I have a 25-year-old son and a 23-year-old son, and I can tell them with a straight face that I went to 95% of all of their sports, even their practices, their plays, their debates, whatever they did in school. I was there for that. Once in a while, that came at some career cost, but again, you don't want to work for a company that's going to penalize you for going to see your kid play soccer. You need to get out of that. You need to get out of that environment. But in my line of work now, I don't know that I could run an arena when my kids were in elementary school, because I work, before COVID, during hockey and basketball season, it is not uncommon for me to come home at 10 or 11 o'clock, 5 or 6 nights a week. And I don't know that I could do that with my kids in grammar school. So now is the right time for me to be doing what I'm doing. And when we're clear of COVID, I can't wait to go back to it, because man, I miss it, because my work ethic was such that my family was first, my kids were first. But right now, when I don't have that pull, I'm at work all the time. And but that passion is there for me to want to do that. And God, I miss it. And I don't think we're going to be open for business for another 6 or 7, maybe a year. And that is killing me right now. I'll tell you that.
I'm sure.
One of a family mentor once told me that your 20s are for not having a work-life balance, and then your 30s, hopefully you reach a point of which you are at a senior enough level that you can start to delegate, and you can start to have assistants, and you can start to offload some of that. And I've always taken that to heart. My 20s, I worked all the time. I stayed up all sorts of hours. I said yes to everything that fell in my lap, any and all opportunities. And I quit my job at almost 29. I finally stopped traveling around 3 months after I turned 30, and I just turned 32. And I have a work-life balance, but it's because I hired a part-time assistant. It's because I've figured out ways to work smarter, not harder, I guess is like the cliche way to say it. But I think that's a wonderful philosophy for both men and women. I'm planning on hopefully starting a family next year, and I'm trying to figure out how to make even more opportunities where I can delegate. Of course, journalism with byline work, it is your work. But if you have content strategy, so writing website copy or blogs, you can definitely hire people underneath you and then top edit those things, because it's not bylined work. So my advice would be to work as hard as you possibly can in your 20s to build your career, and then with the mindset that once you get to your 30s and your 40s, hopefully you can delegate more. And then hopefully when the kids are grown, you can go back to like working crazy hours again.
Shin, I see some more questions.
Yeah, so here, Lindsay, I think that's the next question is really good. Like, since you talk about travel, you talk about, going to different places. Yeah. So is knowing a foreign language or international travel important today for a student here? Because we also have a lot of study abroad programs at App State. So What's your
You
view
were,
on?
you're talking about regret earlier, and I think my regret would have been not studying abroad. I was so focused on getting internships and building my career that I didn't get to study abroad till I was 29. And at that point I was working abroad, so it was a very different experience. I don't think it's absolutely required, but you will make so much more money as a journalist if you're bilingual. You oftentimes content will be translated into both English and to whatever language. So if you are fluent enough to where you can write eloquently in both languages, you will get paid double what someone else will get paid. So I do think that it is a major benefit if you can do that, and if you have the motivation to teach yourself that and become at such a bilingual level that you can do that. Speaking and writing, of course, are such different things. And so being able to do both of those things effectively is a major career point. And if you do want to live abroad, those are where the opportunities are. I mean, if you are able to go to, my fiance is Danish, and in Denmark, there's so many times we are at a museum or something and they've translated the English, and I say, this is not what they were trying to say, because this doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And I've often joked to him, if I could just learn it, I would have such a business just correcting the English translation in different countries. So it's definitely a value add, and I would recommend it completely if you can do that.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
So I think the next question is also very interesting, because you guys talked about internships, and it's very important for students to get a job in the future. But since we're in the pandemic, right, due to COVID-19, a lot of internships were canceled. So students are kind of interested in knowing what's your advice, any tips on how to navigate this, getting an internship right now or maybe after graduate?
That is a tough one. That's a tough one. And they're gonna have to figure it out. And I don't know if I certainly don't have the answer. I know our station stopped offering internships this summer, and it's so vital. And I wouldn't have my career at all without my internship. I ended up with my first job in TV at the TV station. I had done an internship in Knoxville, Tennessee from App State. There's no way. And I learned as much as I learned from Appalachian, and I learned so much by being in the middle of that newsroom and being in the element of the industry I wanted to go into. So I feel bad, and that's terrible. I'd say if they're offering virtual internships, do whatever you can do and be creative. Be the one that sends, hey, Fox 13 in Tampa, Florida, I know you're not offering internships, but what if I did this? Would you be interested if I Zoom into your morning meeting every morning and I send you a copy of a script? Take the lead, take the initiative, and I mean, it's so cliche to say think outside the box, but look, this is a new norm. I'll use all the cliches. We're in this new normal of this pandemic. Nobody has the answers. So come up with some of them. Figure it out. Use your creativity. And I'd say you're going to probably go farther that way. Waiting until after you graduate is a roll of the dice, because I know for legal reasons, unless you're getting college credit, internships are going to be very tough to come by.
So I would echo everything you say, Charlie, but another thing to think about is activating your alumni network, which you have. You have all these wonderful people here, and you have a huge, Rolodex of people coming from the communications, from the journalism, broadcast schools. So I would activate that network. I actually hired a summer intern. I paid them a stipend, and I had them do stuff like transcribing my interviews and researching a topic if I was interested in learning about it. And then I also just had a weekly Zoom call with them, and I just answered all their questions. They weren't located in Boston, so I actually haven't even met this girl in person, but she cold emailed me, referenced 4 articles that she read of mine and that she loved. And she said, I just want advice and I just want help. I'm a strong believer in paying interns. I wasn't paid for any of mine. I just got school credit, which is very difficult to do. So I didn't pay her much, but I was able to at least give her something. And I'm sure anyone here, if you emailed them and said, will you have a monthly Zoom call with me and answer my questions, we would all do it. And, there's hundreds of people just like us. And that going on your resume, is still a wonderful thing to put as an internship. And for journalism kids, I don't really know about broadcast too much. Ed 2010, which is ed2010.com, has a ton of digital internships still. It's an organization that's run by previous magazine editors that I volunteer with. It's based in New York. So definitely check that out. They accept all juniors, seniors, recent graduates, everyone. So,
Lindsay, that's a really interesting point about the fact that because it is a tight-knit school, it's not a school, you know, a 40,000 student UCLA. Because it is a tighter knit school and it's a school within a school, that it's easier to find contacts or people who can remember when they were in that situation would help you out. So
And you have LinkedIn. Use it. I mean, it's a free
it's your
service.
friend. Yeah.
Yeah.
Chen Chen.
Sure. So the next question, I think, let's talk about graduate school. So we have a student in advertising and PR double major, and was not sure what type of industry this person wanted to get into. So is graduate school really necessary for somebody in this field? What's your view on graduate programs?
I think I can go into this. I am starting an MBA program in January. So when you think MBA and journalism, they're two completely different things. But as Lindsay mentioned earlier, I was a general business minor, and that's a great foundation that I had. When I graduated college, I originally thought I wanted to go to grad school for journalism. I thought that would get me where I wanted to go. But I waited a couple years and I found out, okay, I want to go into leadership in news, and I want to go be an executive producer. I want to be a Jim Newman, a news director, and I want to go into leadership. So how I get there is by business, not necessarily journalism, because when you climb the ladder a little bit, it's not necessarily journalism. I mean, you still have ethics and daily decisions that you're making for stories and what crews you're going to send where and all of that, but it's also the business side of it. And I did not really learn that until the past year. And that's why I am I'm starting an MBA program in January. So I would say personally, I'm glad that I did not jump right into grad school right after college. Like I said, I was going to go to UNC, their J School program. If you feel like there's still a lot to learn and there's still a lot that you want to learn, sure, go for it. Go to grad school. But for me, I'm ready to get out of school. I want to still learn journalism, but I still want to start making money. So I started my career, and now I'm going back to grad school a couple years later.
I went back to graduate school in 1998 is when I started. I got my degree in 2005, and it was in Southern history from North Carolina State University, for crying out loud. But the reason I did that was because my critical thinking skills were just horrible. I'd just kind of gotten into this I wasn't challenging myself, and I'd always wanted to scratch that itch of getting a graduate degree. And like Casey said, there was no way I was going straight to graduate school out of undergrad. I was just tired of, going hand to mouth. And, but one of the things that your generation has that mine didn't, and I sort of bordered that in the late 90s and early 2000s when I went back to graduate school, is you can do so much at night, you can do so much online, and still kind of have a career during the day. Now it takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of discipline, and you're going to miss some things on weekends and evenings that you kind of were used to. But I'll never forget when that epiphany happened. I always said, well, I can't go back to graduate school because I got these kids and I got this tough job and this boss is kind of a jerk and this ain't going to work. And then one night I was sitting around about 8:30, I was watching Beavis and Butthead, for crying out loud. And I said to myself, if I've got time to watch Beavis and Butthead, I've got time to go back to graduate school. And within 6 months, I was in graduate school. I was working at, I had to go at night. That's why 1998 to 2005 is, do the math, kids, it's 7 years. But I was so glad I did it. I think it helped me career-wise. I'm sure it helped me salary-wise, but I know it helped me creatively and critical thinking. It helped me get a Marshall Fellowship, which I never thought a stupid kid like me from Ashburn, North Carolina would ever get. It is worth the effort, but it's also, your mindset has to be, this is not about money and this is not about how quickly I can get a graduate degree. One of the things that disturbs me are these commercials that you can get this MBA in 2 years or 18 months. Well, great, but what have you learned? What was it that challenged you? What kind of professors did you have while you did that? Because I can tell you that my graduate school professors were some of the most memorable people I'll ever have. Some of them I would never, could agree with them or whatever, but that wasn't the point. It was about learning and just always try to be learning. I'm 55 and I'm trying to figure out, what's next for me? Do I want to postdoctorate? What do I want to do? And I got to make some decisions.
And I
Lindsay?
think to Jeff's point, if you go into the working field, find a company that wants to invest in you. So you say, hey, I'm looking to go to graduate school. They'll say, hey, we'll pay for part of it. I mean, that is the best case scenario. And they want you to grow. So they're going to pay for that. And you're reaching your goals of growing in graduate school. So it's a win-win there.
Lindsay, a quick one from a viewer. You caught people's attention with website, has internships, and did you say paid?
Sorry, what was the question? Is it on the
The
Q&A?
website you mentioned 2010, something 2010?
Oh yes, Ed, it's ED, like Ed, the name Ed, 2010.com. The one thing I would add with digital journalism, if you're looking to be someone who freelances for a bunch of magazines and publications online, I was only really ever asked about my education when I was an entry-level editor and entry-level writer. Since then, all they care about are my clips, so all my writing samples. So my big piece of advice with graduate school is if you can afford it, do it. But your journalism career is not going to pay you wonderfully for quite some time. And that's a lot of debt to go into, and it's difficult. I mean, especially if you want to live in New York, you want to live in Boston, you want to live in LA. It is, the realities of adulthood aren't always the most fun things to talk about. But I do think if you want to do it later in your life when you have the means, or to Casey's point, if you have a wonderful company who wants to sponsor you to do that, absolutely take advantage of that. But you know, the best graduate schools that you would go to for journalism cost upwards of $40,000 to $50,000 a year, and you'll do 2 of those, and that's a ton of debt. Not to be a Debbie Downer, but the realities of journalism salaries are not those of my friends in investment banking. So,
Shinshin, one more from the audience.
Sure. Yeah, we have 2 more questions actually about the broadcasting major. The first question is there any way or best ways to get involved in with sports in general if they wanted to be broadcasting, specializing in sports?
I'll jump in there. One of the things that astounds me is working with the Carolina Hurricanes, a National Hockey League franchise, is how many people that work for them started at the minor league hockey team in Huntsville, Alabama, or the Durham Bulls, or something like that. To jump straight into sports is almost impossible, and no one is going to take a chance on you just because you want to be there. But if you can show that you hustled tickets one night for the there's a little minor league team right here, the Carolina Mudcats. If you sold tickets one night and you dressed up like the Mudcat the next night, and then the third night you did a kid's birthday party, that will get the attention of the Carolina Hurricanes or the Dallas Cowboys or Los Angeles Lakers eventually, and you'll meet more and more people. You just have to start out kind of humble at the bottom rung, so to speak, but be that person that's going to do whatever it takes. One of the things that I see at the Hurricanes that means a quick exit is I'm not going to do that. And I've seen people actually say that. And I can tell you on a game night, just like in broadcasting, it's all hands on deck. I mean, I have cleaned up vomit. I have done. I've taken crying kids to the lost and found. And if you're not willing to do that, and I'm the boss. I mean, I'm wearing a suit and I'm cleaning up that kind of mess. You're not going to last very long. But if you start out, if you want a career in sports, and this is journalism or Cosmopolitan magazine or anything, be humble. Look at who will hire you. Look at who will pay you to do something, and you'll be shocked at how many people you'll meet on that low rung, because the Carolina Mudcats, for example, are a Milwaukee Brewers franchise, and a lot of guys I know that work for the Mudcats now work in Milwaukee for the show. And they sold popcorn and they did all that little stuff. Just be that guy or gal that'll hustle, that'll be there, that if it's 5:30 on a Friday afternoon and everybody's going out for drinks, but something hits the fan, that you're going to be the one that stays there and does it, and is going to do it with a smile on your face, because eventually somebody's going to call you and say, hey, I got this great gig in Boston that you'd be perfect for. And then all your dreams kind of come true right out of the blue.
Yeah,
I would add, if they're specifically talking about like sports broadcasting and like they want to get into be a local sportscaster, embrace news writing and understand being a news reporter first, and get in the newsroom, get the job first, and then be the utility player. I spent 6 years in Knoxville, Tennessee as the crime court reporter. It's not what I wanted to do at all. I wanted to be a feature reporter. I wanted to have fun. I wanted to do the entertainment, the star interviews and all that stuff. I finally got there about 15 years later. But get in the newsroom, then get back in the sports department, ask them if you can help them on a Friday night, cover high school sports. In the morning meeting, pitch sports-related stories until you drive the news director nuts, and they go, fine, go do the sidebar sports story. But embrace news writing, understand what it takes to be a general assignment reporter, and then worry about your specialty. Don't turn down a job that could lead to your dream job, thinking that, well, I don't want to take that because that's not really what I want to do. Think of it as a stepping stone to get to where you want to be.
Yeah, let me echo.
Storytelling is storytelling.
Yeah, let me echo off of Charlie. Even though I do weather now, I had all those years of experience doing production work, and I started by just pulling a cable stringer down the sideline for ESPN way back in the day. And to this day, that skill set that I have from my production experience allows me to kind of help get a feel for what's going on news side, on big breaking news stories. You get a sense for how newsrooms should be run, how production should be run. And it's so subtle that, I can tell the people, we get the young weather interns coming in who don't have a production experience. They don't understand the operation of a news facility, the overall operation, the basic understanding that is paramount to when you go in to be a part of that team, to be a part of that crew, to be a part of those people in that effort on news or sports, to have that overall understanding of everything and how that operates. It's fundamental just to the basics of how you approach what you do in whatever capacity you're going to be doing that in this business. And, I still use it today. There are election nights coming up. Okay, I'll get water for whoever's in studio. I don't, we don't need to do weather tonight. What can I do to help in terms of, get our product, make it look good, make the overall team effort look good on the air. And, what can I do to help with that? And it's the overall flavor. I can't stress enough about getting into the sports side. Jeff, you and my older brother, Michael, have similar backgrounds when he was here with the CRVA in Charlotte. We're football kids. We got the lecture about not going into sports, but yet my older brother found a way to get back into sports, worked with the Hornets and the Panthers and all that stuff because of what he was doing, helping manage the facilities down here. And so you just have to be willing to open yourself up to finding maybe a path in a side door, not necessarily the front door, and learn it all, absorb it all. And every chance someone asks for you to be a part of some production side of something, get a battery, bring me some duct tape, pull that cable, you do it with a smile, because you're learning and you're building contacts within the business who are going to see that work ethic. And down the road, when they need someone at the last minute, are going to pick up that phone and call you and say, can you be out here? And if you're able to do that, you go do that. And then, it's a gradual piece of the puzzle, bringing it all together.
Do we have one more?
Yes, we do. Actually, we have one question about the journalism major wants to be a news reporter. Should this person also be major in broadcasting, or what kind of minor do you think would be good for this type of career?
So I'll go ahead and, so I was in that same boat. I wanted to be a reporter too. Ask Jim Newman. He saw my reel. I was holding my phone so tight that he told me to literally peel my hands off of my phone. And the scary intern speech, I didn't get it once, I got it twice, all of that. I recommend, if you can double major, great, if you have the time to do that. If not, seek an internship with broadcast like I did. in a TV newsroom, email them, say, can I sit in on your morning meeting? Whatever you can do to just get a glimpse of a day in the life of in a newsroom, because it's very hard to understand unless you're actually in it. As far as being a reporter, I would say go in with an open mind. When I took my producer job, I said, I'm going to do this for a year, and then I'm going to apply to every single reporter role open on the East Coast. I'm going to apply to Wilmington, Virginia, everywhere. And I started producing as an AP. I was writing scripts, being the second man in the booth for the 5 o'clock producer. And I fell in love with it. And I looked at the 5 o'clock producer and I said, I want to be that person. And a year and a half later, I was that person. And I decided I'm going to shut my reporter door and I'm going to keep my producer door open. So I go into it with an open mind. A good reporter is also a good producer. A good producer is also a good reporter. They understand both sides of the business. They know the deadlines that the reporter's meeting in the field. They know the 500 tasks that a producer is doing back in the booth. So I would definitely recommend going into it with an open mind.
This has been a really interesting discussion, and I appreciate everyone's time tonight. But before we wrap up, I wanted to go around one more time and ask one more question. What is the square root of 3? No, I'm not going to ask that. But starting with you, Lindsay, what would you tell young Lindsay?
Oh, goodness. I think the biggest thing that I would have told myself is just to calm down. I think everyone on this Zoom call had the exact same type of overly ambitious type of mentality. I actually graduated a semester early. I broke an apartment lease, much to my parents' dismay. Did find a subleaser. But I moved to New York. I graduated December of 2009. I was supposed to graduate in May of 2010. I moved to New York on March 14th after working at a Books A Million for 2 months, saving up my money, and just hit the ground running. I mean, I was gung-ho on becoming a journalist, and it did work out in my favor. But I have fun memories from college, but I don't have a bunch of them. I do have a lot of wonderful friends from college, luckily, who were probably just as ambitious as I was. But I would have just enjoyed myself more. So as soon as you're in the real world, you are in the real world. And I often think about the COVID-19 situation right now, and my friends and I talk about it. And I think if I had graduated just this last May as a senior, I think I would have just taken a gap year. Would have just taken a year off and maybe like worked on freelancing or like, building my portfolio or something. Like, the real world is a real thing. And if you have so much of success, is some of it's talent, but most of it's hard work and enthusiasm and having a good attitude. And you're still going to have that even if you have a semester where maybe your last semester isn't that hard and you have a little bit more fun with your friends. So I think I would have just told myself that it will all work out. It'll be fine. And to just calm down a little bit.
Charlie?
I got one for professional and for personal. For professional, don't make the mistake I made. My educational process was all about just getting by that test, memorize it, take the test, move on to the next test. I didn't embrace my learning. So I encourage you to embrace the learning. Don't just pass the test. Learn the material. It sounds silly even as I say it out loud, but it was, again, go back to that game show. It was like, I got to answer this question right, then I got to move on to the next one. Let me memorize everything. I wish I had embraced the learning because I love it. I love learning now. And whatever class you're in, embrace the learning. It'll make it a much more pleasant experience. Trust me on that one. And then personally, much what Lindsay was saying, take advantage of everything at your fingertips. And I know it sucks that we're in the middle of a pandemic and so much has been taken away from your fingertips. So hopefully it starts to come back, but go to football games and go to the art gallery and go to the symphony and see plays on campus. There's so much art, and read the Appalachian cover to cover and listen to WASU and take advantage of all that is there on that mountaintop and soak it up, because you'll look back at some point and go, oh, I should have gone this, I should have done that. Take advantage of it while you can.
Well said, Mr. Crum.
You are people, young folks who are in a very unique place that is Appalachian State University. And I get the stress and the pressure. I had a lot of that in myself when I was getting into the business and working its way through. But one of the favorite memories that I have, and I encourage you to do this before you leave, I went hiking up on Grandfather Mountain, and we had weather come through, and it put a shell of ice on the tent, and the system moved out, and the moon came out, and we stepped out, and we were looking down the Watauga Valley there, and you just soak in that beauty that is up there, and the peace that comes from being a student at App State, and being able to return and kind of recenter yourself. That's what trips for me are back to Boone, is an opportunity to recenter myself. And, you know, you like Charlie had mentioned, you know, experience the things that you can experience now and be a part of it. And on the professional side of it, don't limit yourself geographically. I struggled with when I took my first full-time gig in a town called Albany, Georgia, down in Southwest Georgia. I was doing mornings. I did 4.5 years of mornings. And Charlie, you're a far better human being than I am, because I was 4.5 hours into that gig, and I said, I've got to get out of this. This is killing me. I couldn't, you know, that lifestyle. But it was a good experience. I'm glad I went and did it. But when I got down there that first year, it was lonely. I had no family. I had no friends. I was doing all the shows. I was working all the holidays. But I look back on that now, and that gave me really a lot of the tenacity that I have today to do what I do in the cableverse versus the affiliate world. And so don't limit yourself to market size. You go geographically where the work is going to be. You do your best job possible. And then when you have been there for at least 2 years, you start looking for other work if you want to. And then you're going to be able to move back to maybe a larger base of civilization. But it was a really good fit for me down there in Albany, Georgia. I love those people. I still stay in touch with them. But North Carolina for me is home, and I wanted to come back home, and I was able to do that. I had to leave in order to come back. So that's the best, you know, just don't limit yourself geographically.
Casey?
I'm going to interrupt just for 5 seconds. I have a client call with the West Coast, so I have to hop off. Please, thank you so much for having me, Jen. This was wonderful.
Thank you, Lindsay.
And to the other panelists here, feel free to email me with any questions. I'm sure you guys will send over the contact, but have a great night.
Thank you, Lindsay.
See you.
For being here.
Good, Lindsay.
Bye, good luck.
Thanks, Lindsay. I would just echo Lindsay's message and just chill out. I was so worked up my senior year finding a job. I literally thought I would graduate on a Saturday and start my career on a Monday. And if I could go back and do it, I would take a gap year. I would even take 6 months just to breathe. I mean, like she said, once you start, you're in it. You're going to work every Christmas. You're going to work every Thanksgiving. You're going to work every 4th of July. You're going to miss your first homecoming at Appalachian State and see all the pictures on Instagram. It's going to suck. And just chill out, because it will, whatever's meant to be. If you have a true passion for this field, it will happen.
Well said, Casey. Jeff, you want to close this out?
Well, I just say relax. You're going to be fine. And no one could have told me that at 21 or 22. I had to find that out for myself. You know, let that stress drive you a little bit. Make that extra phone call or email or make your LinkedIn page a little bit better. But relax, and you're going to make mistakes. You're going to get fired. You're going to live in places you never thought you'd live. Most of your plans are going to work out the way you thought they would, and that's fine. Trust me, you will be fine. And God knows, I wish somebody had told me that in 1984, because it just, you know, hard work will get you where you want to go, and a smile will get you even farther. I promise that.
Wise words from some wise folks. I would like to thank the wise folks for spending 90 minutes of your evening with us. I'd also like to thank Shen for kind of being my other set of eyes. Like I said, I have the attention span of a rock, so I can use all the help I can get. And I'd like to thank the folks who are sitting out there asking questions. This is being recorded. I will be sending out copies, and I appreciate your time, and have a lovely evening. Go Mountaineers.
Thank you, everybody.
See y'all.